Hello everyone and welcome to the very third Don't Be Bored podcast. This time around I'm going to talk about my history of board gaming, how I got into it, how I got into reviewing, etc. and maybe a little bit more. You'll have to lend me your ears for the next so many minutes to find out. So how did I actually become a board game reviewer? Well, kind of tracks back through to while at school. I started doing a few blog posts, and that, as a result of that, I saw an opportunity to review video games. The first video games I ever reviewed, if you were interested, they were Mafia 2 and Kane and Lynch, the original. Very different games, and it was an amazing experience for me as a teenager that didn't have, access to just every game I wanted through not having, billions of pounds. The fact that a company was going to send me a game, and it wasn't just they sent me a game that looked like off the shelf, it was like a special disc, red and white writing only, review copy. I felt pretty cool getting that as my first game. So for a number of years I reviewed video games, and then, I was at school, I went to university, etc. At uni I did actually back a few Kickstarters. I got such games as Walk the Plank, a very small sort of family weight game. I backed a game called Machine of Death, where you all sort of sat around and came up with reasons for being killed off or not killing off and different things like that in this game. So I actually had dabbled with Kickstarter before I really knew about board games as a hobby. It was just something that we did. It's part of the sort of the group of friends, and it was good fun, but we never really sort of looked past the sort of mainstream games. I didn't really look past until Asmodee, of all companies, actually reached out to me. So I was writing for a website called Just Push Start at the time, and I was reviewing many different video games. So we're talking, I was probably reviewing a different video game every week, be that on PlayStation or on PC, or I even got like the PlayStation Vita to review and stuff from Sony. So that was going well, and the website was certainly getting a lot of traffic, and Asmodee sort of reached out, had seen that our numbers were quite good, and they said, look, we've got some games coming out soon that are based on video game apps. Would you like to review one of them? One of those was Plague Inc. I'd not played the app. I quickly googled it when I received the email. I learnt a little bit about it, and I said, yeah, sure. Again, going back to the fact that, yeah, someone's going to send me something free, I'll definitely review it. I can tell them it's awful if I want. I've done that on a number of video games. I was not afraid of calling out a bad game, because I don't want people to waste their money on a game I say is good when it's not. So they sent me that. I said, look, it's the first time I've reviewed a board game. I've not done this before. They were very happy with giving me a good amount of time to review. I was used to turning reviews around for video games in, a few days. You had to sink many hours in. That's not really possible with board games, because you kind of need other people most of the time. I'm not a solo gamer, and certainly at that point, many games didn't have solo rules. They just were standard 2 to 4, maybe 3 to 5 player ranges. At least that's what I was aware of. I don't think solo gaming certainly wasn't as big back then as it is now. So I got Plague Inc. I reviewed it. It was a fun game. It had some cool mechanisms, some good-ish choices. It wasn't necessarily the greatest theme. It wasn't the most sort of capture your imagination as you're playing, but everyone sort of got their own little virus or bacteria or something, and you leveled it up, and you did different things that meant you could spread slightly differently, and it was a relatively fun game. I gave it a relatively good review because it was a fun adaptation of the app. And then I thought, I'll send the link across, as you do when you review a board game or anything. You send your coverage back and you sort of, I was like, I'm going to play it cool. I'm going to maybe wait a couple of days and then sort of say, look, if there's any other opportunities in the future, please sort of count me in. And about an hour after I'd sent my review link across, I actually got a response saying, thanks for the review. Would you like to review some more games? Yes, please. That was pretty much my response. Obviously, I tried to sort of, again, play it a little cool. I didn't want to just sort of come across as, I'll take anything, because you don't want to look like that as a reviewer, mostly because they'll send you anything. And I'd got to a point with the video games where I could request what I wanted and not request what I didn't want. And that was certainly where I want to be and where I am with board games to some extent, or was at that point. So it was a case of I went, yes, I will review certain games on a case-by-case basis. The reason I do that is because there's some games, be that video games or board games, that I look at and I go, that's not going to be for me. And if a game is not going to be for me, okay, I might be surprised by it, but chances are I'm not going to be able to review it very well because I'm going to be constantly looking at the mechanism and not enjoying it. Push Your Luck in board games is a prime example. I'm not a huge fan of it. If your game revolves around it, it better be really short, because otherwise I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be a struggle for me to therefore see it as a positive. Yes, I can tell you, if you love Push Your Luck, that's what this game is all about. But it's going to be a struggle for me to actually enjoy it. So I like to make sure that when I'm reviewing a game, I at least know something about it to sort of say, yes, I'm happy to review or not happy to review. Very, very rarely will I say, yeah, I'll review a game without knowing anything about it. And that is normally, it's been recommended to me, or it's been a case of this publisher hasn't let me down, or this designer. But anyway, going back to it, I'd got this opportunity. They'd sort of said, would you like to review more? They actually, I think they offered me Ticket to Ride Europe, and I'd already got that. So I quickly said, ooh, what about this other Ticket to Ride? Just the original sort of thing. So I managed to review that, and it just sort of snowballed. It snowballed from there on writing reviews for the website Just Push Start, which is no longer a thing. And I reviewed there for probably a good 4-5 years, different board games, starting from Plague Inc. through many games, big and small, you know, really small card games like Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, through to massive Twilight Imperium 4, which I got before it was officially released. I reviewed so many things for that website, because I was basically the only writer that wanted to cover board games. Now, unfortunately, that site sort of ended a couple of years ago, or about 2 years ago it started going downhill. About a year ago it ended, but I'd seen it coming, so I'd started to transition off onto YouTube, which is probably where you're listening to this. And that's just how I'm still reviewing games. I had built some contacts up for reviewing from that website. I'd managed to somehow hold on to some of those contacts, and I've been fortunate that that's allowed me to get review copies still, or at least still be in the loop for when news announcements come out and such. There's definitely a case, if you're looking to review games, starting on your own, because that's where I started. If I hadn't have done those original blog posts, I'd never have seen the opportunities, been invited to have the opportunities to write for a website, which actually then turned into me getting a couple of little paid articles, which turned into the big role at Just Push Start, which meant, and without that I certainly wouldn't be here reviewing board games on YouTube. It just wouldn't have happened. So that is my history of becoming a reviewer, and, you know, I very much enjoy it, and long may it continue. Fingers crossed and all that. So what would my advice be for someone starting now? It is that, like I said, start doing something, because that's how you're going to get noticed, that's how you're going to build up content. And there's an amazing thing with YouTube of you have a back catalogue on your channel. If I find and see a video from someone I'd not seen before and I really enjoy it, what's one of the first things I do? Not subscribe. It's I go and look at what else is on their channel. I go and watch a couple more of their videos. I'm still liking it, they are getting that subscribe. But for that content creator, I've actually gone and watched their other videos. Even if I've not subscribed, I've not ended up enjoying other videos, I only enjoyed that first one. I went and watched their other videos, but if they didn't have other videos, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it would have to be spectacular for me to just go and subscribe. So having your back catalogue of decent videos, you know, you've reviewed a couple of games, you've done some gameplays, you've taught games, whatever it is that you're doing, you've talked about games. If I've got something else I can go and watch or listen to straight away after that first video, it's maybe going to be the thing that captures me to create your audience and everything. So that's my advice, just do it. I started out recording for YouTube on my phone, and that is perfectly good quality. Certainly the new cameras on the phones are insanely good. Once you've done, once you've done a few, maybe invest in, I think my first sort of, I think they're called lava mic thing. That was like $15. It was like a tenner, £10 off Amazon. It came the next day and it plugged into the jack in my phone. Yes, so we're talking a few years ago, because they don't have them, at least the modern ones, anymore. But you can get stuff that it allows you to still plug those into phones. You just need a little adapter thing, and that was absolutely perfect. That's this. I recorded many of my videos on this channel, many of my earliest videos on my phone, even for the Dice Tower where I contribute for Board Game Breakfast. My initial segments were all done with a little £10 mic and my standard camera phone, which at the time was probably like the Samsung Galaxy S10 or whatever. I think it's jumped to like 20s now and stuff. But it was, we're talking 4 or 5 years ago. It was a relatively new-ish phone, but it wasn't like the brand new one. You don't need that insane level quality. You just need to start, and then if you're enjoying it, yeah, go and get some better gear, get better mics or whatever, and just enjoy. So, as I like to do on these podcasts, I'm going to talk to you about a game that I have not actually this time recently played, but one I have played, and I just thought it would be interesting to talk about it a little bit on the podcast. Today we're going to talk about Sonora, which is a flick and write game. And I want to talk about this because it's so unique and yet so flawed at the same time. So Sonora is, like I say, a flick and write game. What that means is you are, on your turn, flicking a disc from the side and trying to get it to land on specific places on the board in the middle. It's split into 4 regions, and that, depending on where your disc lands, it's that region that you're going to be writing the number on that disc onto. So if you get it into, say, one zone, the purple zone, you might be going down one of the routes 5 spaces if you've got your 5 there. But perhaps if you've got it into the desert area, I think that was the right one, you'd use the number 5, you'd convert that into a shape, which is number 5, it's like the biggest, best shape, and you'd draw that onto that part of the board. Now, I really liked the idea and the concept. I was just very let down by Sonora, and that's because there's a few bonus spots on the board that if you flick onto them, it sort of like doubles it. So instead of, like I'd said, that 5 means you move down the route 5, maybe you double it so you go down the route 10. And the furthest down your route you get, the higher the points are available for stopping off on this route. So you want to get to the bottom of these routes really quickly, so by doing that, you can do it. The issue comes when it's all based on that luck. And yes, there's some skill in flicking the discs into the right places and stuff like that, but as soon as you've got another player opposite you, they're flicking discs and maybe they've nudged yours off, and you can have a round where you draw one tiny little shape, you do a tiny movement here, you do something else where you're crossing off some certain, like 3 shapes on another section, and your opponent does almost double that. And because it's kind of lucky on the flick factor, it just felt to me like a really swingy game. And when I play a roll and write, flip and write, or in this case flick and write, I want it to be kind of balanced. I want it to be, we're all using the same stuff, but maybe I've used it better than you. Like, think Welcome to, you get the choice of 3 different numbers with 3 different abilities. On a turn, you're going to write one of them. Your opponent could write the same one, but they also have the choice of the other 2. Everyone's got the same options. Everyone needs to then do the best with it. And I think Sonora could be used like that, where both players flick a disc, they try and aim it to the area they want, they try and make it land on the bonus shape that they want. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, because you're going to get to choose maybe between all of the discs that are flicked. You pick 2 or 3 or whatever. I just feel that the flicking just meant that if your flick was bad, or if your opponent flicked it and hit yours away from the area that you'd perfectly managed to get it onto, woohoo, I'm going to get this great bonus. Oh, they've just accidentally, not even on purpose sometimes, nudged my disc off of that, and now it's in a region I didn't want it to be. It felt really bad when that happened. I liked the concept, I just wish that it was something where it was more of a, right, we've all flicked, now choose so many of the potential options from the flicks. It could still be bad, but at least there's some mitigation there. And I just felt, while there was some mitigation of you could swap the place of your disc or re-flick, it just wasn't enough for me. But the concept of taking a flip and write and adding it to be a flick and write, I got to commend the game for trying that and just being different. I would definitely play another flick and write, it would just have to have some of that extra mitigation rolled in for me. But let me know one game that you really think breaks the mould. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a good game. I ended up not liking Sonora, but I have to commend it for trying to be different. Anyway, let me know one game that just breaks the mould. Maybe it's a worker placement game that does something crazily different. It is a flick and write instead of a roll or flip and write. Let me know in the comment section below that game. And if you want to leave any questions for maybe the next episode for me to answer, well, put them in the comment section below. Anyway, that about wraps today's show up, so thank you for lending me your ears. I hope you've enjoyed what you've been listening to. Like, subscribe, and all that sort of jazz. And until next time, have a great day gaming.